tuning in to Real Teens Real Talk, where it's our goal to create a platform for young people to openly discuss key issues that affect them and the lives of their peers. Now don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
All kids have trouble staying within the lines. After the third grade, it could be a sign of a learning disability. With the right help, most kids go on to do well in school. Call now to help your child manage his learning disability. There's no reason to be held back.
Welcome back to Real Teens Real Talk, and I'm your host, Carolyn. And today we're going to discuss the presidential debate, and we're going to give our opinion on some of the hot topics. But before we do so, we're going to introduce the cast with their name, the school they attend, and their age.
Hi, my name is Izaria Ortiz. I'm 16 and I go to Charter High School for Applied Tech.
Hi, my name is Nigel Washington, and I'm 16 and I go to Frederick Law Olmsted.
Hi, my name is Holly Childs. I'm 13 and I go to West Seneca West Middle.
Hi, my name is Oriana Pritchett. I go to Sweet Home High School and I'm 15.
All right, so today we're going to discuss the presidential debate. So, our first topic is immigration. So, immigration is the international movement of people into a destination country which is not their own. So, my first question is, why do you believe that immigration is such a big issue?
I think it's a big issue because there are a lot of illegal immigrants, and when they come to our country, I think that a lot of them, some people don't really contribute to the economy, and sometimes that aggravates people.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we don't really know who they are or any of their background, and that's not good. Especially with all the bad stuff happening, like terrorism.
True. Why do you believe that immigration is a big issue?
I definitely agree with Holly, and I also think that with so many immigrants coming in, they are getting all this money from the government sometimes. And I think that's a problem because we have all these Americans who are in poverty, and we're taking care of all these immigrants when we can't take care of ourselves.
That's true. Do you have anything else to add to what she just said about the immigrants?
I think she kind of hit that, yeah.
She hit the nail on the head.
Yep.
All right. My next question would be, what should be done to stop illegal immigration, or do you think it will never be able to be stopped?
Well, I feel like in a way it really isn't. It's very hard to stop because a lot of people will just kind of come in, and I think we kind of need to limit it. And I feel like for any kind of immigration, we should do really serious background checks more than what we do now because we don't know who they are. And I also think that we really shouldn't let a lot of people into the country right now because we already have so much stuff going on with ourselves that we can't take care of anybody else.
Well, do you think that it's fair what Donald Trump said, that we should not let them in at all? Do you think that's fair?
In a way, yes, because like I said, we can't take care of ourselves. So how are we going to take care of a bunch of immigrants if we can't take care of our own Americans?
Okay.
I do agree in a way because I think that as of now, we really shouldn't be letting people in because of all the terrible things that are going on. But I feel like once we get our issues figured out, then maybe we can kind of slowly start bringing people back, only doing a lot better background checks than what we are.
Okay. Do you have any questions for them?
No.
Do you have any questions for them?
No.
Okay. All right. What about if children of illegal immigrants become U.S. citizens? Do you think that that is true? Do you think that that is acceptable? Like, if you're an immigrant, you come over and then you begin a family, you start a family. Do you think that your children should be considered immigrants, or do you think that they should be considered U.S. citizens?
Well, I think they should be considered immigrants because they're the kids of immigrants, but I think that they should be able to become a U.S. citizen if they take the steps necessary to become one.
What do you believe?
I believe that if you were born of immigrants, then as long as you become a U.S. citizen, I think that you should be a U.S. citizen because you became.
So you think that if they come to the city and they have children who are born in the U.S., that they have to wait till they get older to actually go through the citizen process?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you'd be better off doing that instead of getting deported back to your homeland.
Okay.
Well, when immigrants have children, their children are considered U.S. citizens. So, like, what do you think it would be appropriate for them to have to wait until they're of like 18 or whatever to have to get citizenship, or do you think that should already be warranted to them because they were born here from immigrants who already have their citizen status, right?
Well, if you already have a citizen status, then your children should have one. But if you don't, I think your children should wait until they can get one.
Okay. My next question and my final question about immigration is, if they are immigrated illegally, do you think that they should be deported, or do you think that they should just be able to get everything squared away here on the U.S. soil?
I think, like, it depends on if you're selling drugs illegally, and I think it depends on the person in general, because with some immigrants, they're not bad, but other immigrants, they have to go.
So how do you determine whether an immigrant coming in the U.S. is bad or good?
Right.
Now, I believe that we should do serious background checks. I mean, if you see a background check and you find out that they've been selling drugs in their own country, then they shouldn't come to this country.
Any final words on immigration, Ms. Holly?
Yeah. My final words are that we really, really kind of need to get everything sorted out, as I've been saying, and that until that happens, I don't think we should be letting people in. And I really don't want to, take anybody off, but because I'm not prejudiced and I love everyone, but I just don't think it's a good idea to keep letting everyone in when we have so much things going on that we're still trying to figure out.
So our final thought for immigration is take care of home first before we invite others. All right, we'll be right back. We're going to come back and we're going to discuss war. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. RT.
What would you do if you had to choose between the buffalo and the giraffes? Between a flower or an elephant? What would you choose? What if you had to decide between a 100-year-old tree and a 1,000,000-year-old beach? Between drinking clean water or breathing clean air? Would you make the right choice? Would there be a right choice? Now there's a way to help. Not just one, but all these things. EarthShare, the world's leading environmental groups working together. It's one choice we can all live with. Ask your employer about workplace giving.
Well, I was 10 when I first got involved with drugs. I skipped school because, nobody cared. I was on drugs, and my mom didn't really care because she was on drugs. She was never home. I was in 8th grade for like 3 years. I was heading nowhere. I just thought the only way I can make something out of my life is that if I get an education, I don't want to be a loser, some loser getting high all the time. I want to make something out of it.
RT. Welcome back to Real Teens Real Talk. I'm your host, Carolyn, and today we are discussing hot topics of the presidential debate. Our next topic is going to be war. War is a state of armed conflict between different nations or states or different groups within a nation or state. And our two debatees or debaters is Mr. Nijan and Ms. Azaria. So my first question for you is, do you believe that war is beneficial?
I wouldn't say war is beneficial, but I do believe war is necessary. In times of when we are personally attacked or in times when we have to combat against another nation, I think it's necessary. At times it can be beneficial if we gain land or property or riches, but I don't think war should be sought to be a beneficiary factor for the United States.
Mrs. Azaria, what's your take?
I think war can be beneficial when we get rid of people who are harmful to especially us, but to other places too. And like Nijan said, war is necessary sometimes when it's actually necessary, when we have to defend our people or the people of another place.
Okay. Do innocent people die in war, do you believe? Besides the actual soldiers. I mean innocent people, like if they bomb U.S. soil, do you think that innocent people their lives are being taken?
Yeah, of course, it happens all the time. It's not a good thing, or it shouldn't happen, but when you're in the battlefield and you're trying to take out an enemy, you're not too much looking at the kids, the children, even though it's wrong. The soldiers go in there with one purpose, and they seek to finish their mission. So at times, yes, during war, people are killed.
People are killed?
Innocent people are definitely killed during war. You see it in all types of documentaries and news articles and things like that, and they use regular people, everyday people in foreign countries to motivate. They harm regular people in other countries to motivate their their reasons for why they're doing stuff. Like if the regular people aren't on their side, then they hurt them. So regular people are always in the fire of war.
So pretty much civilians are always like in the line of fire.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question to you is, what are the outcomes of soldiers and their families after they come home?
When
Well-
they come, sorry.
You can go ahead.
A lot of times when soldiers come home, they suffer from PTSD and stuff like that. And when they're away, it causes separation between the family. And sometimes kids hold resentment from their parents that are gone for so long because they miss out on so much stuff, and so do spouses.
Oh, I never thought about it like that. So the children, because their parents aren't there, they can have resentment,
Yes.
even though it's not really their fault. Like, you know what I'm
right.
saying? Like, it's your job, but you don't really have a choice on when you get to come home.
Right.
Okay, I understand. Go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't say it's not their fault because they made a decision to kind of go to war. They made that decision to enlist. Not to say it's wrong for them to enlist in the Army, but it was a choice for them to go into the Army. And on the side of them coming home and the effects on the family, I agree with Azaria saying that they do come home with PTSD. And I mean, the psychological damage that they have from being on a battlefield, seeing people die, having to kill people themselves, is just traumatic for their minds and traumatic for their families because their husbands and wives are coming home with different mentalities.
What if you were an elected official? What would you do to make sure that their livelihood is up to par? Like, they worked for us, they saved us, they went to battle for us. So what would you do in return if you were an elected official to make sure that their life, the remainder of their days, were smooth?
If I was an elected official, I would actually talk to them to see what they need. Because some people don't feel like they need psychiatric help or psychological help, or they don't want it. And some people might need financial help when they come home, because not all veterans are taken care of when they come home from war.
True.
So if I was an elected official, I would have people to sit down with these war veterans or with these soldiers so that we could talk to them and see what they need, and then we will help them.
Yeah, in similar regards, I would say that to help soldiers coming home, that we start funds for like a pension for when they come home, because when soldiers come home, their job is the military and they actually don't make that much money. They make pretty much what we make here. The only thing that's different is that they're not spending for the living requirements that while they're in the Army. So when they come home, it's just it's a change in scenery, because they have to now pay for bills, for gas, for lights, and so I would help them on the financial front. And if they need psychological help, then get the help that they need.
I guess my other question is, because I feel like sometimes, I know that the soldiers can be forgotten about, the people who are actually doing the work, but even those that are at home, sometimes they could be forgotten about. So if you were an elected official, what type of programs or things would you have for their families, their children, their wives, or their spouses while they're away? What would you be able to do for them while they're here?
What do you mean?
So, for instance, if my husband is out on war, but I have the kids and I'm at home, what type of program would you have for me? Because, like, they're going through it too.
Right.
So,
if I was an elected official, like I said before, I would sit down with the families and make sure that they're good and have what they need. And I would support them in any way that they would need, because their spouse or their mother or father is out there fighting for our country and fighting for the freedom for us. So the one thing I would do is make sure that they have sufficient funds to take care of themselves, and anything that they need, I would provide that for them.
Yes, I agree to similar stances. I would say that that we still provide the family with help as much as we can, because there is a lot of soldiers and a lot of soldiers' families. So I would say that we would help as much as possible as we can, especially financially, because that's the biggest problem. I mean, families can easily go to a doctor to get psychological trouble and help with their psychological troubles, but I would just say to help them financially as much as we can.
When we come back, we're going to discuss the U.S. debt with Mr. Nijan and Miss Holly. Now, don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back. RT.
Okay, girls, 3 o'clock.
What is he looking at?
Oh, dude, it's so obvious. Captain Obvious has scored again. Open your window, say something.
Oh, he's really gonna down.
Hi. Hi.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
To change the world, you don't have to be rich, or famous, or play ball, or lead countries. All you have to do is tell your family you want to be an organ donor. Talk to your family about organ donation. Talk to your family about donating life.
Welcome back to Real Teens Real Talk, and I'm your host, Carolyn. Today we are discussing the U.S. debt. Alright, so that's our next topic for now, U.S. debt. According to the U.S. debt calculator, we are $19.5 trillion in debt. Can somebody tell me how we got there, or what thoughts that you would have on how we got there? We're going to start with Ms. Holly.
We kept borrowing money from like other countries.
Okay.
And when we did that, like the money that we owed them just kept piling up and piling up. And then I was told that the U.S. debt clock just keeps like going up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's getting any better. I really don't. And because we just kept borrowing money, now we're here at almost 20 trillion, and it's really bad.
That's ridiculous. That's a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Well, since 2000, we went from being at $6.4 trillion to now being at almost $20 trillion in debt. And most of the money is actually coming from our defense spending. That's what we spend most of our money on. And then next we spend on social welfare programs. And then we spend money on education. We spend money that we don't actually have, and that we don't actually need to spend. There's so much spending that is extra. If you ever see one of the logs of the Senate naming all their funds that they use, it's just so many programs that we don't even know about that has $1 trillion that they use to spend, but we don't even know where that type of money is coming from. So it's so much money that we're borrowing and we're deficit spending that we don't even know where it's coming from.
Well, if we are supposed to be the most wealthy or the best country in the world, why is it that we keep requesting money from other people? If we have it, then why don't we have it?
Because we have the power to do so. Because America is so prevalent in the economy of the world, as much money as we keep taking from others, they're not gonna ask it back from us as they would other countries, because if America economy fails, the world economy fails. So that's the reason that we don't have to pay China back so fast. How our biggest debt, the place that we're biggest in debt with is China, but we don't have to pay them back because our economy is banked on the world economy. So we're not being pressured to pay it. So we don't feel that the need to cut back on our spending because no one's going to tell us that we can't.
Wow. What's your take on that?
I actually want to add on to what he said about China.
Okay.
Because it's really quick. I just have an interesting story. In social studies, we were talking about the U.S. debt, and my social studies teacher talked about how we were owing money to a lot of other countries, and he told us to get used to a lot of things from China in our house because we owe so much to them.
So that's why we have a lot of made in China things. Like almost everything is made in China.
It's because of the amount that we actually need to spend to buy the things from China. It costs 3 times less to buy things from China than it is to make it in America. That's why you see all those made in China signs, because the production level is so much higher at a much lower cost.
What would you do to change the spending that, like the spending that we use in the economy? Like you said, there's so much spending that the senators use and that's in like the executive branches and the judicial branches and stuff like that. What would you do to change that? Or even the social services spending that we do. What would you do to change that and change the policies on that?
Well, the first thing I would do is make sure that we actually know where all the money is actually coming from, because when we say $19.5 trillion, nobody actually knows where that $19.5 trillion is actually going. We don't know how it's being divvied up between anything. We don't know how much governors or senators are making. We don't know how much funding they are being allocated. So the first thing that we have to start with is telling the citizens who are paying their taxes for us to have the money to actually do these type of things, to see what they're actually spending. So the first thing is that, and then the second thing is actually spending money on useful things and not just spending our money willy-nilly. Like it's just like a shopper going to the store or just buying jewelry and clothes and stuff, but buying it with a credit card that they don't actually plan to pay back.
That was deep. All right.
Sure was.
Okay, there is a difference between deficit and debt. The deficit is the fiscal year difference between what the U.S. takes in from taxes and other revenues, called receipts, and the amount the government spends is called outlays. The debt is the accumulated deficits plus accumulated off-budget surpluses. So, the more money you have, the more of a budget that you need, which is true. And if you have money coming out of here and there and everywhere, you add it all up, it's more than what you actually have. So you're continuously, oh, China, can I have this? Oh, Japan, or wherever. Whoever's going to give you the money, that's who you're really asking for it from. So do you think that there's any hope for the debt? Like, it's going up, but do you feel like there's any way for it to come back down?
I do. I think we need to honestly stop borrowing money from a bunch of other countries until we can pay off a lot of the debt, because it keeps growing and that's not helping anything. So I think we need to really cut back on borrowing from here and there, and we just need to stop borrowing money just for a little bit until we can kind of get the debt down, and then maybe we can start, but slowly. I don't want to go back to 20 trillion. That's insane.
So her thought was cut back. What's your thought?
I disagree on the front that we can actually change it. I think that we can change it, but $19.5 trillion is not a little bit of money. $19.5 trillion is a huge amount of money, and in order for that to be cut down, there has to be money taken away from programs like welfare programs. There has to be money taken from the war budget. It has to be money taken from every little thing that we don't even think about. So in order for those to be enacted, we have to use bills. So I think legislation for that type of stuff to get cut down. So I think that, it's possible for us to cut it down, but $19.5 trillion is a lot for us to cut down. So I think that it's going to take us 20 plus years to actually try to get it down.
All right. So our final thought on the U.S. debt is cut back, and it's going to take time. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back. RT.
I was in the 6th grade on an honor roll and everything, then I got pregnant. School was not important to me, so I dropped out. And now that I'm 15, I have 2 babies. It's important for me to finish school because I don't want my babies to have to go through the things I went through. I don't want to live off other people for the rest of my life. I want to be somebody. I don't want to live like this.
Is cocaine crack or is crack cocaine?
You were going to talk to her?
You were going to talk to her.
I think it's time that we had a little talk.
We'll talk about it later.
No, it's time. It's important.
If you had any questions you wanted to ask me, honey, you would ask your father, wouldn't you? Right.
I'm just going to tell my kid that if he ever tries it, I'll kill him. All right?
That's sensitive, Al.
If you need help talking to your kids about drugs, call for this free book.
Welcome back to Real Teens Real Talk. I am your host, Carolyn. And before we leave today, we just want to encourage you to vote. And we're all going to give our final thoughts on the show and why it's important for you to vote. We're going to start with Miss Holly first.
When you go and you vote, I just want you to know that you really need to kind of think about what you want the president to do. Because I know that there's a lot of controversy between Trump and Hillary, but you gotta really think about how each of them feels about the issues. Instead of who did the emails or who said this or who said what, the issues are very, very important. You have to think about that. And I personally believe that the next president should think about, my big thing is immigration, because I really believe that we can't keep letting people into this country. I've said it once and I'll say it again, because we already have issues. And that's another important factor you need to think about. I also want the president to make sure that, to be open to people and to be able to accept people for who they are, because I know there's a lot of controversy between same-sex marriage and all that. I just want to make sure that they want to make America a good country.
Very good.
For when you vote, I think you should vote based on what you need, but I also think you need to vote on who's going to make America great. Because Donald Trump says he is, but do you really think he is? And I think I'd vote for Hillary any day.
All right, Mrs. Zaria.
I think that when you go to vote, you should consider every part of who that person is that you're voting for. When you go to vote, think of the issues that we have. Like Holly said, immigration is a great issue because we already have enough issues here. And when you go to vote, think of the issues that go on in your individual households. How much you get paid and how many times your children go hungry at the end of the night because you don't have the money to take care of them, or you don't have the money to provide for them. So I think that when you go to vote, you have to think about the real key issues of what this country is based on.
All right.
The key thing to think about when you go to the polls is to think about all the issues, to think about our economy, and to know that the next president of the United States has a lot of issues such as immigration, such as U.S. debt, such as war, all these types of issues that they're going to have to deal with when they go into office. Also, to know that your vote actually counts. To know that whoever sits in the Oval Office is the person deciding a lot of the decisions. When you go to the polls, just remember that the key issues that we talked about today are things that the President of the United States are going to have to deal with. So when you go to the polls, think about all the issues, think about the platforms of the candidates, and to know that your vote actually counts.
All right. Before we leave, I just want to remind you to watch our show every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. on Time Warner Channel 20, and our sister show, the DJ Star Show, every Friday at 10 p.m. Okay, you also can follow us on Facebook at Real Teens Real Talk. And don't forget to vote. Voting is very, very, very important. That's the only way that your voice is going to be heard. That's the only way that your thoughts are going to be considered, is if you circle in that line on the ballot. So, don't you go anywhere. Don't forget to watch our show. And we'll see you next time on Real Teens Real Talk. See you.